Hey everyone, going to be talking about one of my favorite things today, sourdough bread. This doesn't happen to be sourdough bread, but that's the idea. We all have heard that sourdough bread is wonderful for us, and those loaves in the store like this look so tempting, don't they? Even if they're labeled with sourdough. But the question is, are they true sourdough? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Let me take a moment and welcome you all to Ask Wardee. I'm Wardee from Traditional Cooking School by Gnaufglins, and this is my weekly show devoted to answering your questions about traditional cooking. It's called Ask Wardee, and we gather here every Wednesday at the same time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can join live on Periscope or Facebook, or you can always go to askwardee.tv to check out the podcast, the video recording, and all the notes of everything we talk about. In fact, the notes are ready for you right now. So if you feel like you just got to get to the bottom line, just go to askwardee.tv, look for this episode. It's number 57. So you're all coming in and saying happy to be here. I'm happy you're here as well, and so happy you're here to join me. Please do, if you're live, share your first name, where you're from, and what you're sipping on. As you know, I'm Wardee, and I'm coming to you from Indiana, which is where we recently relocated. We were in Oregon for about 10 years, but in October we moved out here for a lower cost of living, pretty much, and I'm sipping on water. And I hope you'll forgive me because early December I caught a cold, and I'm still kind of getting over it in my throat. So I'm doing better every day. In fact, I looked in the mirror this morning and I was like, you're finally looking healthy again. I think it's been a little bit lacking in the past weeks, but every day a little bit more back to normal. So thank you everyone for sharing who you are, where you're from, and what you're sipping on. I also want to let you know that as we get into today's topic, if you are joining me live on Facebook, Millie is there posting links, answering questions. So if anything comes up, you can post there. And of course, if you're not on Facebook, that's fine, because everything is below this video at askwardee.tv. So you can go there for everything we're talking about. All right, so let's get into today's topic. Is store-bought sourdough bread true sourdough? We have this real enticing loaf of bread here. In fact, loaves, including at the bottom. They're from the store. They may be labeled sourdough bread, but are they real? That is the question. Are they true sourdough? And this is something that Lori L. was wondering recently. She wrote in to me for a future episode of Ask Wardee and said, is the sourdough bread bought, excuse me, is the sourdough bread bought in the store made with a live culture or a flavoring? Lori is understandably skeptical. I think we all have this measure of skepticism because we've purchased things and then found out that they have sugar or artificial flavorings or somebody has a reaction. And sourdough is this thing to be desired, and then you see a loaf of sourdough bread in the store and you think, oh, sourdough, I wonder if it is. And then in the back of your mind you're thinking, is it really? Is it really sourdough? Is it a flavoring or a live culture? Lori is putting into words really what the options are. Are they flavoring it as sourdough, but it's not really? Or are they using the live culture, aka sourdough starter? We are going to get into that today. And Lori, if you want to know my shorter answer is no, that most sourdough breads in the grocery store are not real sourdough. They're fakers. It doesn't mean you can't find real sourdough though. So as we go through today's topic, I'm going to share what the big deal is about sourdough, why sourdough breads in the store are not real, how to find true sourdough, and even how to make your sourdough bread even better, to get better sourdough bread. All right, you all ready? Be sure to watch the comments or look below this video for any of the links that I mention. And again, the notes are at askwardee.tv. Look for episode 57. All right, so Lori, your question, is sourdough bread bought in the store made with a live culture or flavoring? My answer is no, it's probably not real sourdough. It's probably they use a flavoring or flavor packet. There are exceptions to this, but most breads in the grocery store are not true sourdough, which means because so what? So what if it's not sourdough? In fact, as I was Googling to see what other people were saying online about this, there was somebody who posted in a forum this very same question, and one of the responses was, well, no, it's not true sourdough, but what's the big deal? If you like the taste, it's fine. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not fine, because there's way more to sourdough than taste. There's a bunch of health benefits. So that's what we're going to cover first. What is the true point of sourdough anyway? Well, sourdough bread is really cool. So it's old-fashioned, which in and of itself is exciting, because I think a lot of us here love old-fashioned things. Why else would we be interested in traditional cooking? And we're just suckers for it. We just really excites us when we do something old. Like I found a butter churn at an antique mall. I couldn't pass it up, and I used it several times to make butter. Just you're connecting to history, and it's a beautiful, slow process, and you feel like you're part of something that's real. Well, sourdough bread is really cool, not just because it's old-fashioned and not because you might love the taste, but it makes breads more nutritious and digestible. There are health reasons, and here's how this works. Well, the sourdough starter is the heart of it. It's the beginning of it. And your sourdough starter, and I'll give you a way to get instructions to make your own here shortly. But a sourdough starter is this batter of flour and water, but what it contains are these microscopic beneficial organisms. It's a culture of bacteria and yeast, and you combine that with your flour, and the bacteria and yeast do amazing things. They pre-digest gluten, they pre-digest starch, they produce beneficial acids that make your breads last longer. The store-bought breads have to add preservatives. We get that benefit just from using a sourdough starter. The yeasts produce gas and bubbles when they eat the starches and sugars and flour, and guess what that does? It leavens the bread. So you have rising action, you have health benefits in terms of pre-digesting starch and gluten, and you get natural preservatives in the acids that the beneficial organisms produce as they eat the starches and sugars and flour. So it's a really wonderful process that goes way beyond just being old or just tasting really good. So the bottom line, a lot more is going on than just a sour taste. So in our family, and so many of you, I think, we really love sourdough for all of that. And in my family, we have had gluten sensitivity, seasonal allergies, and if we're using sourdough to prepare the flour, the baked goods, the breads, so we use sourdough as the part of the baking process, then my family doesn't have issues with breads. So gluten sensitivity, not necessarily an issue. Seasonal allergies are much better, and things like that. Now, this is our experience. I can't promise this is the same for everyone, but it has been our experience that using the traditional method of sourdough has made it so that breads for us are not a problem, but they're a part of a healthy traditional diet. So now let's talk about store-bought sourdough. I just told you the beauty of true sourdough and what sourdough really is. Well, why isn't store-bought sourdough true sourdough? Here's why. In those breads that you may find on this grocery store shelf and they're labeled sourdough, they may have just a small, they may have just a small amount of sourdough starter added, and it's just thrown in there and maybe with some other flavors so the bread has a sourdough taste. But the action of rising the bread is done with your regular conventional commercial yeast, active dry yeast. So sourdough is just thrown in there and maybe other flavors so that you get the taste of sourdough. So then that fools a lot of people and they say, oh, this is really good. I do have to say that probably a refined palate is not going to be fooled. The true sourdough is going to taste better, but the store-bought sourdough breads have that taste of being sour. So they have a sour flavor, but none of the nutritional benefits that I just went over. Other store-bought sourdough breads might be leavened with sourdough, or maybe a bakery is using sourdough as a leavening. However, what you have to be really careful here is, did they combine the sourdough starter with all the flour in the recipe and allow you call it a souring, and allow the starter to sour the dough for like 5, 8, 12 hours, even overnight, to get the full nutritional benefits. A recipe where they've added a bunch of starter and they've just used it, for a couple hours, it's not going to be a true sourdough in terms of the true health benefits that sourdough can bring to the table. So you've got, some downsides to store-bought sourdough or even local bakery sourdough. It may be like not real at all, or maybe partially real, but it could be way better. So I don't want to leave you despondent, like, oh man, what's the point? I can't bake with sourdough. I don't know how yet, or all my attempts are miserable, so my family can't benefit from it. Your family certainly can, because if you don't make it yourself, even though you have to look hard to find true sourdough, it is out there. And usually it's going to come from an artisan bakery or a baker who, like us, knows what true sourdough is, believes in it, wants to take part in that full, beautiful process, not just because it's old-fashioned, but because they believe that it's healthy as well and tastes way better than anything that could be faked. And so they're bringing that to the farmer's market or in a local bakery. They are so passionate about it, like we are, that they make it available. So as you investigate your farmers markets or your local bakeries, I want to give you some questions that you can ask to see, to find out if it's true sourdough. First of all, look at the ingredients, and if it doesn't say anything like yeast, then they're not adding yeast. It's just going to have flour and water. It may say starter. There's various ways people can do it, but a good starting place is to look at the ingredients, and then you want to ask questions. Maybe you have to make a phone call, maybe you talk to the baker right there, but ask some of these questions, okay? And I'm going to give you the question, I'm going to tell you what the right answer is. So, first question, are they using only sourdough starter to leaven and flavor the bread? Obviously the question, or the answer to that question is yes. The ideal answer to that question is yes. Another one. How long is the dough fermented or soured with the starter? Keep in mind that 8 to 12 hours or more is preferable. So if their answer is 8 to 12 hours or overnight or 24 hours or 3 days in the fridge at a cooler temperature, all of those are within the realm of true sourdough. Here's another question. Is any of the flour not soured by the sourdough starter for the duration of the fermenting? In other words, do they combine some flour with the starter, let it rise, and then add more flour? You want the answer to this question to be no, because you really want, for the full health benefits of sourdough starter, you want most, if not all, of the flour to be combined with the sourdough starter and then fermented or cultured for that lengthy culturing period, 8 to 12 hours or overnight. Another question, are they using some or all whole grains? It's my belief that whole grain flours are better for us. They're not going to have the same blood sugar issues and whatnot as using a refined or white flour. So this is where a yes is preferable. If some or all of the recipes containing whole grain flours, you're getting fiber, you're getting a slower blood sugar response and things like that. And a final question, and again, this is a kind of an optional, just like the previous one. Are they using some or all sprouted grains? Sprouted grains improve digestion even more. So you might find a sourdough artisan baker who is putting some sprouted grain flour in the bread, some or all, and that's a bonus. So if they can say yes to that, that's a bonus. So those are some questions that can guide you as you are seeking out some options for yourself to purchase. I do want to give you some tips and recipes on if you're interested or you want to perfect or learn more about making your own sourdough bread. The reason you might want to do this, well, there's lots of reasons. There may be ingredients you want to avoid. You want to use ancient grains instead of modern wheat, or you're purchasing sourdough bread from a bakery and you do want to support them, of course, we all do. But a loaf there could be $4 to $6 a loaf or more. And if you're doing this for your daily bread, your weekly bread, that really adds up, and maybe your budget really can't handle that. So you want to, purchase those loaves for special occasions, but on a daily basis, on what your family is consuming a lot, you want to make your own. So those are some reasons you want to make your own. You're going to save a bundle, avoid ingredients, use ancient grains, maybe get a better result, tweak. Maybe you live way out and you don't or can't make runs into town that often, so you want to make your own. So if you look below this video or go to askwardee.tv and look for episode 57, you'll see links to some recipes. First of all, how to make a sourdough starter. I also have a free recipe for a no-knead sourdough einkorn bread that includes sourdough starter instructions for using einkorn flour, which is an ancient grain. I've got a link to sourdough English muffins, not so dense or sour sourdough bread. The reason I'm throwing this in here is because we talk about, everybody loves the flavor of sourdough bread. Well, a lot of people don't love the sour sourdough. They want the health benefits, but they don't want it to be so sour. So we do have some recipes that are not so sour, and I've got one linked below this video. There's a sourdough sandwich bread recipe, and we've got a whole collection of 26 true sourdough bread recipes from across the web, not only with us, but other bloggers and sites that we know and trust. So those are some examples for you. If you're interested in I'll show you a picture of it, the no-knead einkorn sourdough bread, be sure to grab the link below this video or go to askwardee.tv and look for episode 57. That's where you'll find a link to get the no-knead sourdough einkorn bread. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about einkorn because einkorn is an ancient grain. It's a 5,000-year-old variety of wheat that has less gluten, gentler gluten, less starch, gentler form of starch. It isn't hybridized like modern wheat, so it's not implicated in some of the modern diseases we have. Myself, I find that I've been a seasonal allergy sufferer my entire life, but I'm really bad with numbers, so forgive me. 3-4 years I've been allergy free, and if I have breads that are made with ancient grains rather than modern wheat, I stay allergy free. If I was to have wheat, I tend to get all stuffed up again. So our experience has been amazing using ancient grains, especially einkorn. So I want to talk to you about it. We have been baking and eating real sourdough bread made with ancient grains like einkorn and spelt for many years. And as I told you, they have less and gentler gluten, less and gentler starch. So if you are combining just the natural benefits of ancient grains with sourdough, then you really have the best possible bread you can eat. Now, I'm not advocating that if you have an issue with grains or you're celiac or you have gluten sensitivity that you should run out and do it. Obviously, you want to look into gut healing and make sure that you are a person that can handle it. But as a general rule, somebody in really good health is going to have this kind of sourdough bread is going to be even better. And it is a possibility that some with issues that have issues with modern wheat, modern gluten, won't have issues using ancient grains, and or that sourdough bread or that the sourdough process will make the grains even better for them. So I'm throwing out possibilities here, not promising, but it is definitely something you want to look at. The ancient grains are amazing in and of themselves. If you combine it with sourdough, I am just thrilled with what it's done in our family to allow us to have bread that is so healthy and that doesn't bring back, for me at least, seasonal allergies. So again, I want to invite you to check out, and all you have to do is look below this video for a link, but this is a picture of it sliced. And here's a picture of it baked in a Dutch oven. And it uses sourdough starter, and it's no knead. So there's just no knead, and it takes less than 15 minutes of hands-on time. It's an incredibly easy recipe featuring einkorn. So we have come to the end now. I just so appreciate you all being here, and I hope, Lori, that this has been a great answer to your question. Is store-bought sourdough bread true sourdough? Are they using live cultures? Are they using flavorings? Well, most of the time they're using flavorings or yeast, and they're trying to fake sourdough bread, and you don't get the nutritional benefits. But if you look hard, you can find it at artisan bakeries, and of course you can make it yourself. And I've given you some ideas and some recipes for that, and I've also told you how you can make it even better. So thanks everyone for being here. Be sure to check out AskWardee.tv episode 57 for all the links and notes on everything that I've shared today. And I welcome you to join me at this same time, if you're live, next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, Facebook, Periscope, or just check out the show notes later, AskWardee.tv. I'd love to gather with you, and if you do have a question, use the hashtag AskWardee on Twitter, @TradCookSchool is my handle, or you can email me, Wardee, WARDEE, @AskWardee.tv. Thanks everyone. God bless you. Bye-bye.